They're waiving former first-round pick Alex Leatherwood, per source. They tried to trade him to everyone, got 32 no's. With new regime,
correct,
it is very easy to accidentally say, hey, we have no loyalties to you. As we've been given the green light by the owner here to build this how we see fit as opposed to the last group. But it is something that new regime, new look, new feel, no, I don't want to say no loyalty.
I need to preface this video by saying the Raiders are in a significantly better position now than they were a few years ago. That is obvious. I mean, you literally have a superstar wide receiver that chose to come to your team instead of playing out the final years over Aaron Rodgers' contract. You were able to acquire talents like Chandler Jones. The offense is as promising as it's ever been under Josh McDaniels, and I could go on and on and on. As a result of today's moves, we can finally look back at the Jon Gruden era at its entirety for what an absolutely unmitigated disaster it was. And that's what we're gonna do today. So before we get to the content, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. If you want shorter versions of this content, we upload shorts to my Instagram at The Flight Mike and onto my TikTok page at Mikerophone NFL. Now that we got all that out of the way, break! Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? In 2018, the Las Vegas Raiders, well, back then they were the Oakland Raiders, had a lot of things going for them. One of the things that they had going for them was the fact that after years and years suffering under inconsistent leadership, despite the fact that their previous head coach, Jack Del Rio, was actually fairly solid with the franchise, but let's not pay attention to that, Mark Davis decided to go all in on an individual that has been consistently hyping up his own stock for years and years, constantly dropping hints that he is willing to step out of the commentary booth and return to coaching, despite having a decent body of work, but also not necessarily the greatest body of work. He decided to sign Jon Gruden to a 10-year, $100 million contract. This was one of the biggest contracts in league history, and it also included a no trade clause. You might be wondering, why was there a no trade clause? Well, ironically enough, Jon Gruden's previous tenure with the Oakland Raiders actually ended with him getting traded to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and then winning a Super Bowl with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which may or may not have been rigged. We made a video on that if you want to determine that for yourself. Immediately, Jon Gruden started making some pretty intriguing moves. One of the most interesting moves that he made was, without a doubt, his handling of the Khalil Mack situation. You see, Khalil Mack was one of the best pass rushers, if not the best edge rusher in the entire NFL, and he was in line for a contract extension. What was Jon Gruden going to do? Was he going to pay Khalil Mack, or was he going to trade him? And ultimately, the decision he made wasn't necessarily the worst decision, because I always mention in my videos, whenever a new regime comes in, as you're going to see in this video, they typically like to clean house completely of the previous regime. So in this case, Jon Gruden decided to trade Khalil Mack to the Chicago Bears and received 2 first-round picks, a 3rd-round pick, and a 6th-round pick from the Chicago Bears in return. Now, this is where things get a little funny, because it's not the fact that Jon Gruden made these trades and they inevitably blew up in his face. I mean, we could discuss how Antonio Brown was brought in later on and how much of a fiasco that was, with him showing his disgusting frostbitten feet to Hard Knocks and coming in on a hot air balloon. You guys remember that? But we're gonna leave Antonio Brown out of this one, because I don't necessarily have an issue with the trades Jon Gruden made. I have an issue with the way he spent the draft capital. I don't think we've ever seen a bigger and a more egregious failure of selecting talent in NFL history, because as these picks were happening, I don't remember a single time where one of these draft picks were selected and Jon Gruden was applauded for his selection, or Mike Mayock was applauded for his selection. As a matter of fact, most of these players were reaches when they actually got selected. So what ended up happening with the Khalil Mack trade? Well, the 2019 pick from the Khalil Mack trade, the additional pick that they got, would turn out to be Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs just recently had his 5th-year option decline. Ironically enough, they had 2 other first-round picks that year, including the number 4 overall pick in the 2019 NFL Draft. And to be honest, man, you didn't need to really do too much scouting to really figure out who you should select if you really wanted an edge rusher in that NFL Draft. I mean, the Las Vegas Raiders were supposed to take Josh Allen. No, not the QB Josh Allen, but the Jacksonville Jaguars Josh Allen, who turned out to be a Pro Bowler, by the way, but instead opted for Clelin Ferrell out of Clemson, which inevitably, we all know what would end up happening. Clelin Ferrell would get his fifth-year option declined. So 3 picks after Josh Jacobs, the Las Vegas Raiders, well, back then the Oakland Raiders, actually decided to trade their star wide receiver at the time, Amari Cooper, to the Dallas Cowboys for a first-round pick. Now, again, great decision in the middle of the season. What ended up happening with that pick, not so great. Jonathan Abram got selected with the 27th pick of that NFL Draft, and Jonathan Abram recently had his fifth-year option declined. So then we move on to 2020, okay? And this is where you're gonna start to see a little bit of a trend. In 2020 was the infamous draft class where, once again, John Gruden got 2 attempts in the first round to rebuild his Raiders, which, by the way, man, there's plenty of great, talented players in the first round. It's just, when you have this many throws at the dartboard and you miss this many times, it's just, you can't help but scratch your head. In 2020, the Raiders took the very first wide receiver in a very talented and deep class of wide receivers off the draft board, with the 12th pick selecting Henry Ruggs out of Alabama. We all know what would end up happening to Henry Ruggs, as he would make a horrific mistake that would ruin his life and the life of another family's by deciding to go to Topgolf, get way too drunk, and get behind the wheel of his Corvette and drive something like 160 miles per hour, colliding with Tina Tinter's vehicle and literally incinerating her and her dog. John Gruden's other draft pick in that class, well, he made a fairly decent amount of videos about him. Damon Arnett would get cut for doing this.
Hey, pull up, lame ass. I swear to God, I will kill you, nigga. On everything I love, I will kill you, nigga. You talking crazy. Talking about that 5 minutes away. The fuck? Like, I really did kill you, nigga. I real deal kill you, my nigga. I will real deal kill you, my nigga. And I ain't the only one here, too, nigga.
And by the way, Damon Arnett has had probably the most chances out of every single person in the NFL to really clean up his act. And it seems like every single time he just completely throws it away. We have a whole laundry list of videos on Damon Arnett. It's a really sad and unfortunate story of a man that just didn't make the most of a good opportunity handed to him. Which, by the way, Damon Arnett was also considered to be a project and a reach, so that pick was doomed to start. And then you get to the 2021 NFL Draft, where once again, the Raiders decided to reach on an offensive lineman. This time they decided to select Alex Leatherwood, and this was their own pick, an offensive tackle out of Alabama. This would be John Gruden and Mike Mayock's final first round pick together. We got breaking news from none other than Field Yates, Ari Meirov, and pretty much every big NFL analyst here that one of the biggest roster cuts that the Raiders decided to make was releasing offensive tackle Alex Leatherwood. Now, this is significant because this is literally the 17th overall pick in last year's NFL Draft. And this is pretty much the new regime of the Las Vegas Raiders saying, okay,
we're done with the John Gruden and Mike Mayock era. This is our team now.
And they were so adamant about it that they even decided to trade their second round pick in the 2019 NFL Draft, Trayvon Mullen, which was a pick that they got from the Buffalo Bills, to the Arizona Cardinals. So the Cardinals are trading a 2023 conditional 7th round pick that could become a 5th round pick to the Raiders in exchange for Trayvon Mullen. On the same day, the Raiders trade Mullen and cut 2021 first round pick Alex Leatherwood.
So what is the point of making this video, Mike?
Well, it seems like it's a dawn of a brand new era. Honestly, like, if you're a Raiders fan, this is time to rejoice, because I think this is finally a point in your franchise's history where it seems like you guys are headed in a great direction. I mean, I personally have always appreciated the Las Vegas Raiders for choosing to stand by Derek Carr. Understand understanding that he is a pretty good QB, and I actually think he's a guy that could get it done under center. Now, do I think you guys are going to be favorites out of the AFC West? Obviously not, but that's because you're in the craziest and best division in football, and I just can't wait to see how it shakes out. But I figured we would do one nice final recap of the complete dumpster fire and show that the John Gruden era was before we could all collectively move forward with the Devontae Adams and Derek Carr era underneath Josh McDaniels. So if you're a Raiders fan, I apologize if I gave you any additional pain. Make sure you drop a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications to help the channel grow. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike. I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.